Chapter 9. The Legislature. Why does Ishrat Husain devote a chapter to the legislature? Isn't governance more about the executive and bureaucracy?
True, the executive runs day-to-day affairs, but the legislature sets the rules. It passes laws, approves budgets, and holds governments accountable. Without an effective legislature, governance becomes unbalanced and dominated by unelected actors.
How has Pakistan's legislature performed historically?
Not very well. From the very beginning, legislatures have been weak. Early assemblies struggled to draft a constitution and were dismissed by executives. Later, frequent military interventions suspended parliaments altogether. This undermined their credibility and authority.
So legislatures were never allowed to mature?
Exactly. Democracy requires continuity. In Pakistan, constant disruptions prevented parliaments from building traditions of debate, lawmaking, and oversight.
What about their lawmaking function? Have they been productive?
Legislation has often been reactive and limited. Many laws were made by military rulers through ordinances, later rubber-stamped by assemblies. Instead of being proactive, legislatures often followed the executive's lead.
So they rarely initiated reforms themselves?
Correct. Unlike mature democracies, where parliaments debate and refine policies, Pakistan's legislatures have often acted as spectators.
How about financial oversight? That's supposed to be a core role.
Again, performance is weak. Budgets are usually passed without detailed scrutiny. Committees exist but lack resources and expertise. Most parliamentarians focus on local projects rather than national fiscal discipline. As a result, executive dominance over finances remains unchecked.
So Parliament fails to control public spending?
Yes, this weakens accountability and contributes to mismanagement and corruption.
What about representation? Do legislatures reflect society fairly?
Partially. Pakistan's assemblies do have reserved seats for women and minorities, which is positive. But overall, they remain dominated by elites, landlords, business families, and wealthy individuals. Ordinary citizens rarely reach parliament.
So it's more a club of elites than a voice of the people.
Exactly. Representation without diversity limits legitimacy.
How effective are parliamentary debates?
Often symbolic. Many sessions lack quorum, meaning too few members attend. Debates are short, repetitive, and focused on scoring political points rather than shaping policy. In contrast, much time is wasted in walkouts and protests.
So serious lawmaking suffers.
Yes, the culture of Parliament is more confrontational than constructive. This prevents consensus building on national issues.
What role do committees play in the legislature?
Committees are supposed to be the engine of detailed work, reviewing laws, overseeing ministries, investigating issues. But in Pakistan, they are under-resourced, lack expertise, and often don't meet regularly. Without strong committees, Parliament cannot fulfill its oversight role.
Do members take committee work seriously?
Rarely. Attendance is low, and many treat them as formalities. Few laws are shaped significantly through committee deliberations.
How do political parties influence the legislature's functioning?
Parties dominate decisions. Since party leaders control tickets and promotions, members follow party lines strictly. This limits independent thinking. Legislatures become extensions of party leadership rather than independent forums.
So individual parliamentarians have little autonomy.
Exactly. Loyalty to leaders outweighs loyalty to constituents.
What about the Senate? Does it balance federalism?
The Senate was created to give provinces equal representation, regardless of population. In theory, it balances Punjab's dominance. But in practice, its powers are limited. It cannot block money bills, so its influence on finances is weak.
So even federal balance is incomplete.
Yes, provinces still complain of central dominance despite the Senate's existence.
Has the legislature ever shown strength?
Yes, occasionally. The 18th Amendment in 2010 was a landmark achievement, passed unanimously by Parliament. It devolved powers, restored democracy, and limited presidential authority. This showed that legislatures can deliver when consensus is built.
So potential exists, but is rarely realized.
Exactly. The problem is not capability, but political will and continuity.
What reforms does Hussein suggest for the legislature?
He proposes several. 1. Strengthen committees with experts, resources, and real authority. 2. Improve attendance and debate culture through strict rules. 3. Enhance financial oversight by empowering public accounts committees. 4. Promote diversity so Parliament reflects society, not just elites. 5. Reduce party dominance to allow more independent legislative work.
And training for members?
Yes, Hussein stresses capacity building for legislators. Many lack expertise in economics, law, or governance. Training would improve quality of debate and policymaking.
Do other countries offer useful lessons here?
Yes, in the UK and US, committees play powerful roles in oversight. In India, parliamentary debates are long and detailed. Pakistan can learn from these practices to strengthen its own legislature.
So improvement is possible with the right reforms.
Absolutely. Parliaments evolve through practice. Continuity and seriousness can make a huge difference.
If you had to summarize this chapter, what would you say?
Pakistan's legislatures have been historically weak due to interruptions, elite dominance, and executive control. They rarely fulfill their roles of lawmaking, oversight, and representation. Yet, with reforms and continuity, they can become the cornerstone of democratic governance.
And the main lesson?
Democracy cannot survive without a strong parliament. Weak legislatures mean weak accountability, and weak accountability means poor governance.
Chapter 10. The Military. Why does Ishrat Husain dedicate a full chapter to the military in a book on governance?
Because the military has been Pakistan's most powerful institution. Unlike many countries where armies remain in the background, Pakistan's military has repeatedly stepped into politics, shaping governance, economy, and foreign policy.
How did the military gain so much influence so early?
From day one, Pakistan felt insecure. It was born in conflict with India, and leaders feared the country's survival. In that atmosphere, the army became the most organized, disciplined, and well-resourced institution. Civilian institutions were weak, so the military filled the vacuum.
So insecurity gave the army legitimacy.
Exactly. Wars with India in 1948, 1965, and 1971 further reinforced its role as defender of the nation. Aid from the United States, mostly military, made the army even stronger compared to civilian institutions.
How many times has the military taken direct power?
4 major times: 1958 under Ayub Khan, 1969 under Yahya Khan, 1977 under Zia-ul Haq, and 1999 under Pervez Musharraf. In each case, generals suspended democracy, justified their rule as necessary for stability, and promised reforms.
Did they deliver stability?
Temporarily, yes, but in the long run, military rule weakened democratic institutions, centralized power, and created new governance problems.
What was the impact of Ayub Khan's rule?
Ayub modernized the economy and introduced basic democracies to give a controlled form of representation. But he concentrated power in the presidency, marginalized parties, and widened inequality. His downfall in 1969 came after mass protests.
So reforms were top-down, not inclusive.
Exactly. They lacked legitimacy, so they couldn't survive.
And Yahya Khan?
Yahya oversaw the 1970 elections, the fairest in Pakistan's history, but failed to manage the result. His refusal to transfer power to East Pakistan's Awami League led to civil war and the 1971 breakup of the country. That was the military's greatest failure.
So centralization and arrogance cost Pakistan its unity.
Precisely. It showed that military solutions cannot replace political compromise.
What about Zia-ul Haq?
Zia ruled for 11 years, the longest military regime. He Islamized laws, co-opted religious groups, and relied heavily on U.S. aid during the Afghan jihad. His rule left deep marks: stronger military, politicized religion, and weakened democratic culture.
Did his Islamization strengthen governance?
Not really. It created divisions, empowered extremists, and blurred lines between religion and politics.
And Musharraf?
Musharraf took power in 1999, promising accountability and reform. After 9/11, he became a key U.S. ally, receiving billions in aid. His early years saw economic growth and local government reforms. But over time, authoritarianism, corruption, and judicial confrontations weakened his rule. He resigned in 2008 under pressure.
So his legacy was also mixed.
Yes, some reforms, but no sustainable strengthening of democracy.
Even in civilian periods, has the military stayed out of politics?
No, even when not ruling directly, the military influences policy. It dominates defense, foreign affairs, and often shapes internal security decisions. Civilian governments tread carefully to avoid confrontation.
So its role is both overt and covert?
Exactly. It's a permanent power center, whether in uniform or behind the scenes.
How does this dominance affect governance?
It weakens democratic institutions. Politicians focus on survival rather than reforms, fearing military pushback. Bureaucracy aligns more with the army than with elected leaders. This imbalance prevents healthy civilian oversight.
And the judiciary's role?
Often supportive. Courts legitimized coups under the doctrine of necessity that further entrenched military dominance.
What about the military's economic role?
Hussein knows that the army is not just a defense force, it's an economic actor. Through foundations and businesses, it controls real estate, banks, industries, and farms. This military economy gives it financial autonomy and more influence.
Doesn't this create conflict of interest?
Yes, when the military benefits economically, it resists reforms that might reduce its privileges. This blurs the line between national defense and corporate interests.
How does the public view the military?
Historically, with respect, people see it as disciplined compared to corrupt politicians. But support declines when military regimes overstay, fail to deliver, or suppress freedoms. Yet overall, the army remains one of the most trusted institutions.
So legitimacy depends on performance.
Exactly. When governance fails, people look to the army. When the army fails, people demand democracy. This cycle repeats.
Does Hussein propose ways to rebalance civil-military relations?
Yes, he stresses that the military must stay in its professional domain, defense, and let civilian institutions handle governance. For this, civilians must also perform better. Weak politicians invite military intervention. Strong governance reduces its appeal.
So reform is a two-way street.
Exactly. Both the military and civilians must respect boundaries.
Do other countries offer lessons here?
Yes, Turkey once had strong military dominance, but democratic reforms gradually reduced it. Indonesia also transitioned after Suharto. These show that rebalancing is possible when institutions strengthen.
So Pakistan can also move in that direction.
Absolutely, but it requires patience, reforms, and civilian competence.
If you had to summarize this chapter, what would you say?
The military is Pakistan's most powerful institution, shaped by insecurity, wars, and weak civilian governance. While it has delivered stability at times, it has undermined democracy and governance in the long run.
And the key lesson?
A stable Pakistan needs a professional army under civilian oversight. Strong democracy, not repeated military interventions, is the path to lasting governance.
Chapter 11. The Religious Edifice. Why does Ishrat Husain devote a whole chapter to religion in a book about governance?
Because religion is central to Pakistan's identity and politics. The state was created in the name of Islam, and religion shapes laws, institutions, and society. Understanding governance in Pakistan is impossible without examining the religious edifice.
Was Islam always meant to play such a strong role in governance?
At independence, leaders like Jinnah envisioned a modern state guided by Islamic values, but not dominated by clerics. Over time, however, political elites, military rulers, and religious parties expanded religion's role in law and governance.
So religion became a political tool.
Exactly. Successive rulers used Islam to gain legitimacy, mobilize support, or counter opposition. This politicization created tensions between modern governance and religious demands.
How did Zia-ul-Haq change this balance?
Zia institutionalized Islamization in the 1980s. He introduced hudud laws, Sharia courts, and compulsory zakat. He also promoted madrasas during the Afghan jihad. These measures gave religion a permanent place in governance, shaping society for decades.
Did this strengthen governance?
Not really. It blurred boundaries between religion and politics, empowered extremist groups, and weakened democratic culture.
What role do religious parties play in politics?
Interestingly, they rarely win large votes, usually less than 15%, but their influence is disproportionate. They mobilize street power, pressure governments, and shape legislation, especially on social and moral issues.
So their power is more about pressure than representation.
Exactly. Even mainstream parties often adopt conservative positions to avoid confrontation with religious groups.
How do madrasas fit into this religious structure?
Madrasas provide free education, food, and shelter to millions of poor children. While many focus on basic religious teaching, some promote sectarianism or militancy. Lack of regulation makes them both a social safety net and a governance challenge.
So they fill a gap left by the state.
Precisely. Weak public education allowed madrasas to expand. If the state provided quality schooling, madrasas would not dominate so much.
What about sectarianism?
Sectarian divides between Sunni and Shia and among Sunni subgroups have often turned violent. Groups like Sipe Sahaba and Lashkar-e-Jhangvi fueled hatred. This violence undermines law and order, destabilizes society, and complicates governance.
So sectarianism is not just a religious issue, but a security issue.
Exactly. It erodes social cohesion and diverts resources toward managing conflict rather than development.
How do courts handle religious legislation?
Courts often struggle. On one hand, the Constitution declares Islam as the state religion and mandates conformity to Sharia. On the other, Pakistan also commits to fundamental rights. This creates tension. Judges sometimes issue conservative rulings to avoid backlash.
So the judiciary also bends under religious pressure?
Yes, especially in sensitive cases like blasphemy. Few dare to challenge the status quo, even when laws are misused.
What about blasphemy laws specifically?
They are among the most controversial parts of the legal system. Initially introduced under colonial rule, they were expanded under Zia. Critics argue they are often misused for personal vendettas or to target minorities. But political leaders hesitate to reform them due to fear of backlash.
So governance becomes hostage to religious sensitivities?
Precisely. Even when abuse is obvious, governments tread cautiously to avoid unrest.
How do religious leaders influence daily governance?
Clerics play roles in education, dispute resolution, and politics. They can mobilize large crowds quickly. This gives them leverage, even when not holding formal office. Governments often negotiate with them during crises, giving them informal veto power.
So they act as parallel power brokers?
Exactly. Their authority comes not from the Constitution, but from street legitimacy.
How does religion affect foreign policy?
Religion has influenced Pakistan's ties with the Muslim world. The Afghan jihad, Kashmir conflict, and support for Islamic causes abroad were often framed in religious terms. While this gained allies in some quarters, it also fueled extremism at home.
So foreign and domestic policies became intertwined through religion?
Yes, and that made governance even more complicated.
Does Hussein suggest that religion is only a burden on governance?
No, he makes a balanced point. Religion can be a unifying force. Islamic values of justice, equality, and compassion can strengthen governance if interpreted positively. The problem arises when religion is politicized or used for narrow agendas.
So the issue is not Islam itself, but its misuse?
Exactly. Hussein emphasizes that Islamic principles can inspire fairness and accountability, but extremism and sectarianism weaken governance.
What reforms does Hussein suggest?
Several. 1. Regulate madrasas by modernizing curricula and integrating them with mainstream education. 2. Promote tolerance through school curricula and media. 3. Protect minorities by ensuring equal rights under law. 4. Curb misuse of blasphemy laws through safeguards and fair trials. 5. Encourage moderate religious voices in public debate.
So governance must engage religion, not ignore it?
Precisely. Ignoring religion creates a vacuum filled by extremists. The state must guide religion toward inclusivity and social welfare.
Do other Muslim countries provide useful examples?
Yes, Malaysia and Indonesia balance Islam with democracy and development. Turkey has navigated between secularism and religious influence. These models show that Islam and modern governance can coexist.
So Pakistan can also move toward moderation.
Absolutely, but it requires courage, education reform, and political will.
If you had to summarize this chapter, what would you say?
Religion is central to Pakistan's governance. It can be a source of unity and moral guidance, but politicization and extremism have created serious challenges. Reforms must promote tolerance, protect rights, and use Islamic values for social justice, not division.
And the main lesson?
Religion will always be part of Pakistan's governance. The question is whether it will be used to divide or to unite. The choice lies in leadership and reform.
Chapter 12. The Private Sector. Why does Ishrat Husain consider the private sector so important for governance in Pakistan?
Because the private sector is the real engine of economic growth. While governments provide policy and regulation, it's private businesses, big and small, that create jobs, generate wealth, and drive innovation. Governance cannot succeed without a vibrant private sector.
Has Pakistan always relied on the private sector?
Yes, from the very beginning. Unlike socialist states, Pakistan leaned toward private enterprise. But progress has been uneven. At times, governments encouraged business. At other times, they nationalized industries, creating uncertainty.
So policy inconsistency held back growth.
Exactly. Shifts between state control and free markets discouraged investment and long-term planning.
What role did the private sector play in early decades?
In the 1950s and 1960s, private industrialists thrived under Ayub Khan's liberalization policies. Pakistan became one of Asia's fastest-growing economies, but concentration of wealth in a few families created inequality, fueling resentment.
So success also had costs.
Yes, growth was impressive, but perceived injustice weakened legitimacy. That's why nationalization in the 1970s found popular support.
How did Bhutto's nationalization affect the private sector?
It was devastating. Banks, industries, and schools were taken over by the state. Investors fled, entrepreneurship collapsed, and efficiency declined. State-run enterprises became hubs of corruption and inefficiency.
So it discouraged private initiative.
Completely. For years, people avoided risk because they feared government takeover.
When did revival begin?
In the 1980s, under Zia-ul-Haq, privatization began slowly. But real revival came in the 1990s and 2000s when governments embraced deregulation, foreign investment, and liberalization. Banking, telecom, and manufacturing saw major growth.
Can you give an example?
The telecom revolution. In the 2000s, private telecom companies entered, reducing call rates and connecting millions. This transformed communication, created jobs, and expanded digital access.
What sectors dominate the private economy today?
Textiles remain the backbone, providing most exports. Agriculture employs the majority, though productivity is low. Services like banking, telecom, and retail have grown rapidly. Construction and real estate are also booming, though often unregulated.
So it's a mixed picture.
Yes, some sectors are globally competitive, others remain stagnant due to poor policies and weak infrastructure.
What challenges does the private sector face?
Several: energy shortages, inconsistent taxation, weak contract enforcement, corruption, and lack of skilled labor. Investors often struggle with red tape and shifting policies.
So governance failures directly hurt business.
Exactly. Without stable rules and reliable infrastructure, businesses cannot grow sustainably.
What about small and medium enterprises, SMEs?
They are crucial. SMEs make up most businesses in Pakistan and provide large-scale employment. But they face credit shortages, outdated technology, and lack of access to markets. Support for SMEs is far below potential.
So empowering SMEs could transform the economy?
Absolutely. With proper credit, training, and infrastructure, SMEs can drive inclusive growth.
How does corruption affect the private sector?
Corruption increases costs, distorts competition, and discourages honest entrepreneurs. Businesses often pay bribes to get permits or contracts. This creates an uneven playing field where connections matter more than efficiency.
So merit suffers?
Exactly. Instead of innovation and productivity, rent-seeking dominates.
What about foreign investment?
Foreign investment has potential but remains low compared to other Asian countries. Investors worry about security, inconsistent policies, and weak infrastructure. Projects like CPEC raised hopes, but bureaucratic hurdles remain.
So trust deficit is the real barrier.
Yes, investors need assurance that policies will remain stable and contracts honored.
Does the private sector contribute to inequality?
Sometimes, big business families still dominate key industries. Wealth concentration limits upward mobility. However, new sectors like IT and services are creating opportunities for young entrepreneurs beyond traditional elites.
So change is happening slowly?
Yes, but potential is huge if barriers are removed.
How does Hussein see the link between private sector and governance?
He argues that good governance and strong private sector are interdependent. Without transparent policies, businesses won't thrive. Without private investment, governments can't create jobs or raise revenue.
So it's a partnership, not a one-way street.
Exactly. The state must provide stability while business must invest responsibly.
What reforms does Hussein propose?
Several. 1. Policy consistency to build investor confidence. 2. Tax reforms to broaden the base and reduce distortions. 3. Credit access for SMEs to unlock entrepreneurship. 4. Energy sector reforms for reliable supply. 5. Improved contract enforcement through judicial reforms. 6. Public-private partnerships in infrastructure and education.
So governance reforms and economic reforms must go together.
Precisely. One without the other won't work.
What about corporate governance within the private sector?
That's another challenge. Many firms remain family-owned with weak transparency and accountability. Strengthening corporate governance is essential for attracting investment and competing globally.
So professionalism is as important as profit.
Exactly. Long-term sustainability needs transparency, not just quick gains.
Do other countries provide useful models?
Yes, South Korea and Malaysia show how strong state-business collaboration can transform economies. By supporting entrepreneurs, enforcing laws, and ensuring merit-based competition, they turned poor countries into industrial powers.
So Pakistan can learn from them.
Absolutely. With its large youth population and strategic location, Pakistan has similar potential if governance aligns with business needs.
If you had to sum up this chapter, what would you say?
The private sector is Pakistan's growth engine, but it faces major obstacles from poor governance, inconsistent policies, and corruption. Unlocking its potential requires reforms in taxation, credit, energy, and law.
And the key lesson?
Sustainable growth depends on a partnership. The state must provide stability, while business must act responsibly, focusing on innovation and jobs, not just quick profits.
Chapter 13, Administration of Justice. Why does Ishrat Husain focus separately on the administration of justice when he already discussed the judiciary earlier?
Because the justice system is more than just judges and courts. It includes police, prosecution, prisons, and the entire process that delivers, or fails to deliver, justice to ordinary citizens. Hussein emphasizes that governance cannot improve without fixing this chain.
So justice isn't just about laws, but about how they're applied?
Exactly. Pakistan's constitution provides rights, but weak enforcement makes them meaningless for many. A system clogged with delays, corruption, and inequality prevents justice from being delivered fairly or quickly.
How serious are delays in the system?
Very serious. Millions of cases are pending. Ordinary disputes can drag on for years, sometimes decades. This discourages citizens from using formal courts and pushes them toward informal mechanisms.
What are these informal mechanisms?
Jirgas, panchayats, and other local dispute resolution systems. They are fast and accessible, but they often violate human rights, especially for women and minorities. People rely on them because formal courts are too slow or expensive.
So weakness of the state pushes people to parallel systems.
Precisely, and that undermines the state's legitimacy.
How does corruption affect justice?
It's a major issue. Bribes often determine how quickly cases move, which side the police favor, or how evidence is treated. The poor, unable to pay, are disadvantaged. This creates the perception that justice is only for the wealthy and powerful.
So inequality is built into the system?
Yes, access to justice is unequal, reinforcing social divisions.
What about the police's role?
The police are the front line of justice, but they face political interference, resource shortages, and corruption. Many citizens see them as predators rather than protectors. This erodes trust and pushes people away from the formal system.
So reforming police is essential?
Absolutely. Without accountable and professional policing, the rest of the justice system cannot function effectively.
How does prosecution fit into this chain?
Prosecution is weak in Pakistan. Often, cases collapse because prosecutors are poorly trained, underpaid, or politically influenced. This allows criminals to escape conviction, undermining deterrence.
So even when crimes are caught, justice may fail in court?
Exactly. A weak prosecution means strong laws remain ineffective.
What about prisons?
Overcrowded, underfunded, and poorly managed. Prisons often become schools of crime rather than rehabilitation centers. Wealthy prisoners enjoy privileges, while poor ones suffer harsh conditions. This perpetuates inequality and fails to reintegrate offenders into society.
So prisons reinforce injustice instead of correcting it.
Sadly, yes.
How does the justice system affect economic development?
Strongly. Investors need reliable contract enforcement and property rights. Delays and corruption discourage investment, hurting growth. For ordinary citizens, land disputes alone clog courts and discourage agricultural and urban development.
Has Pakistan attempted reforms?
Yes, several times. Police reforms, judicial training, alternate dispute resolution mechanisms, all have been tried, but implementation is weak and political resistance often stalls progress.
Can you give an example?
The police order of 2002 under Musharraf introduced accountability and autonomy. Initially promising, it was later rolled back under political pressure. Reforms rarely survive beyond the regime that introduces them.
What role did the lawyers' movement play?
The lawyers' movement of 2007-09 showed that the legal community can mobilize for justice. It restored Chief Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry and energized civil society. But while it strengthened judicial independence, it didn't fix systemic delays or corruption.
So it was symbolic but not structural.
Exactly. It improved morale but left core issues untouched.
Does Husain suggest solutions?
Yes, several. 1. Modernize case management with technology to reduce delays. 2. Strengthen police autonomy while ensuring accountability. 3. Improve prosecution services through training and pay reforms. 4. Expand alternate dispute resolution for small cases while protecting rights. 5. Prison reforms to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment.
So reforms must address the whole chain, not just courts?
Precisely. A piecemeal approach won't work.
How does the justice system connect with governance?
Directly. When citizens feel justice is denied, they lose faith in the state. This fuels extremism, violence, and reliance on parallel authorities. Conversely, fair justice strengthens legitimacy, stability, and social cohesion.
So justice is the backbone of good governance.
Exactly. Without justice, other reforms cannot succeed.
Do other countries offer useful lessons?
Yes, many developing countries reformed justice by digitizing courts, training police, and introducing fast-track tribunals. Bangladesh created special courts for quick contract enforcement. India introduced e-courts to reduce delays. These show reforms are possible with political will.
So Pakistan is not unique in its challenges.
No, but its political and social context makes reform harder. Still, lessons from abroad can guide change.
If you had to summarize this chapter, what would you say?
Pakistan's justice system suffers from delays, corruption, and inequality. Police, prosecution, and prisons all need reform. Weak justice undermines both democracy and economic growth.
And the key lesson?
Justice is not a luxury. It is central to governance. Without timely, fair, and equal justice, Pakistan cannot achieve stability or prosperity.
Chapter 14. The Role of External Actors. Why does Ishrat Husain devote a chapter to external actors in a book on Pakistan's governance?
Because Pakistan's political and economic trajectory has been deeply shaped by foreign powers. From military alliances to economic aid, external actors have played a central role in strengthening or distorting Pakistan's governance.
Has this influence been present since independence?
Yes, from the very beginning. After partition, Pakistan felt insecure against a larger India and sought alliances abroad. Its first major external partner was the United States, which offered aid in exchange for strategic alignment during the Cold War.
So dependence was built into Pakistan's foundation?
Exactly. Security fears made leaders turn outward for support, and that shaped governance structures for decades.
What role did the United States play?
A dominant one. In the 1950s and 1960s, Pakistan joined SEATO and CENTO, receiving large amounts of U.S. military and economic aid. This strengthened the army far more than civilian institutions. Later, during the Afghan jihad of the 1980s, U.S. support poured in again, but it empowered militant groups and intelligence agencies.
So aid often came with unintended consequences.
Absolutely. It boosted short-term security but weakened long-term governance by creating dependency and distorting institutions.
What about relations with China?
China has been Pakistan's most consistent ally. The relationship began in the 1960s and deepened over time. China provided defense technology, infrastructure investment, and diplomatic support. Today, projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor symbolize this partnership.
How does Chinese support differ from American aid?
China focuses more on infrastructure and long-term projects, while U.S. aid was often tied to security and short-term geopolitical needs. But both shaped governance by reducing pressure on Pakistan to reform internally.
And Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia's influence is huge, especially culturally and religiously. It has provided financial aid, oil on deferred payment, and jobs for millions of Pakistani workers. It also funded religious institutions, which expanded conservative and sectarian ideologies.
So Saudi aid was not just economic, but ideological.
Exactly. It reshaped Pakistan's religious and political landscape, especially during Zia's era.
What about international financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank?
They've been constant players. Pakistan has gone to the IMF more than 20 times, seeking bailouts to manage its balance of payments crises. These programs come with conditions, like cutting subsidies or raising taxes that directly impact governance and public welfare.
Do these reforms help or hurt?
Both. They provide short-term relief and discipline, but repeated reliance shows failure to build self-sustaining policies. Many reforms remain incomplete, creating cycles of dependency.
How has foreign aid shaped domestic governance?
Aid has often created complacency. Leaders avoid tough reforms because external money fills the gap. This weakens tax systems, public services, and accountability. Military rulers especially benefited, as foreign powers preferred dealing with strongmen.
So aid encouraged authoritarianism.
In many ways, yes. External actors prioritize stability over democracy, strengthening the military at the expense of civilian institutions.
What about the diaspora's role?
The Pakistani diaspora is another external actor. Millions working abroad send remittances, which stabilize the economy. Unlike foreign aid, remittances go directly to households, improving welfare. But over-reliance on remittances can also mask structural weaknesses.
So it's a double-edged sword?
Exactly. Helpful for survival, but not a substitute for reforms.
How do regional dynamics shape governance?
Relations with India dominate. Constant hostility justifies military dominance and high defense spending. Tensions with Afghanistan, especially over the Durand Line and Taliban, further complicate governance. These external conflicts shape domestic priorities.
So foreign policy and governance are deeply linked.
Absolutely. External threats shape internal institutions, often at the cost of development.
Do external actors always undermine governance?
Not necessarily. Aid and investment have built roads, dams, and infrastructure. External actors also support health, education, and civil society. But the problem is overdependency and selective use, helping elites more than the masses.
So the issue is management, not just aid itself.
Precisely. Properly used, external support can accelerate reforms. Misused, it entrenches weaknesses.
Does Hussain suggest how Pakistan can balance this external influence?
Yes. He argues Pakistan must reduce dependency by mobilizing domestic resources, especially taxes. It must strengthen institutions so that foreign support complements reforms rather than substitutes for them.
So self-reliance is key.
Exactly. Without internal strength, external actors will always shape the agenda.
Do examples from other countries help here?
Yes. Countries like South Korea and Vietnam used foreign aid strategically, investing in education and industry until they became self-sufficient. They didn't allow aid to undermine domestic reforms.
So Pakistan needs to follow that path.
Absolutely. Use aid as a bridge, not a crutch.
If you had to summarize this chapter, what would you say?
External actors, U.S., China, Saudi Arabia, IMF, diaspora, all shaped Pakistan's governance. They provided resources, but also encouraged dependency, military dominance, and weak institutions.
And the key lesson?
External support can help, but real change must come from within. Pakistan's governance will improve only when it reduces reliance on outsiders and strengthens its own institutions.
Chapter 15. Restructuring Key Institution. Why does Ishrat Husain dedicate a whole chapter to restructuring institutions?
Because governance ultimately depends on how institutions work. Weak institutions produce corruption, inefficiency, and instability. Strong institutions deliver justice, services, and accountability. Without restructuring, reforms in other areas cannot succeed.
What exactly does restructuring mean here?
It means redesigning the way key state institutions like bureaucracy, judiciary, police, and regulatory bodies function. The aim is to make them professional, transparent, and accountable rather than politicized or dysfunctional.
So it's not about abolishing them, but improving them?
Exactly. Pakistan has the right institutions on paper, but their performance is undermined by interference, inefficiency, and lack of merit.
Which institutions are most in need of restructuring?
Hussein highlights several: the civil services, judiciary, police, local government, regulatory agencies, and state-owned enterprises. All of these affect citizens' daily lives and the economy.
So the problem is widespread.
Yes, it's systemic. No single reform will work unless institutions across the board are improved.
Let's start with the civil services. Why are they so important?
Civil servants run the state machinery: tax collection, development projects, public services. But over time, merit has declined, promotions are politicized, and training is outdated. This reduces efficiency and erodes public trust.
What reforms does Hussein suggest?
He suggests merit-based recruitment, continuous training, better pay to reduce corruption, and clear performance evaluation. Civil service should serve the public, not politicians.
And the judiciary?
Justice is the foundation of governance, but courts suffer from delays and corruption. Restructuring means modernizing case management, expanding the number of judges, and using technology. Accountability mechanisms are also needed so judges deliver justice fairly and quickly.
So it's about speed and fairness.
Exactly. Justice delayed is justice denied, and that undermines legitimacy.
What about the police?
The police are citizens' first contact with the state, yet they are often seen as corrupt and politicized. Restructuring requires giving them autonomy, professional training, proper salaries, and modern equipment, while holding them accountable through oversight bodies.
So both independence and accountability are needed.
Precisely. Without trust in police, law and order collapses.
How does local government fit into this?
Local government is closest to the people. When strong, it delivers services efficiently. But in Pakistan, local systems are repeatedly dismantled whenever civilian or military rulers fear losing control. Hussein argues for permanent, constitutionally protected local governments with resources and autonomy.
So decentralization is essential.
Absolutely. It improves participation and accountability.
What about regulatory agencies?
Agencies like SECP, NEPRA, and PEMRA are meant to regulate markets, energy, and media, but they often lack independence and expertise. Political interference turns them into tools of control rather than neutral regulators. Restructuring means granting them autonomy, professional staffing, and accountability.
So regulation should ensure fairness, not favoritism.
Exactly. Effective regulators encourage investment and protect consumers.
And state-owned enterprises?
They are a huge burden. PIA, railways, and power companies lose billions annually. Instead of providing services, they drain the budget. Hussein suggests restructuring through privatization, professional management, or public-private partnerships.
So efficiency must replace political patronage.
Precisely. These enterprises must serve the economy, not political interests.
How does corruption tie into institutional weakness?
Weak institutions breed corruption. When rules are unclear and accountability is absent, officials exploit their positions. Restructuring means closing loopholes, enforcing transparency, and strengthening watchdog bodies like NAB and Auditor General's Office.
But don't these bodies also face credibility issues?
Yes, which is why they too need restructuring. Accountability must be impartial, not politically motivated.
What role does technology play in restructuring?
A huge one. E-governance, digital tax systems, biometric records, and online portals reduce human discretion and therefore corruption. Technology can speed up services, improve transparency, and build trust.
So modernization is as important as reform.
Exactly. Technology ensures reforms reach ordinary citizens.
What obstacles block institutional restructuring?
Political resistance, vested interests, and lack of continuity. Elites benefit from weak institutions. They exploit them for personal gain. Every new government starts reforms but abandons them midway, leaving systems half broken.
So the real challenge is political will.
Precisely. Precisely. Without sustained commitment, reforms collapse.
Do other countries offer lessons here?
Yes, Singapore built world-class institutions by prioritizing merit, accountability, and technology. South Korea and Malaysia also invested in strong bureaucracies and regulators. These examples show that institutional restructuring can transform governance if leadership is consistent.
So Pakistan is not doomed.
Not at all. It has the capacity. What it needs is will and continuity.
If you had to sum up this chapter, what would you say?
Weak institutions are the root of Pakistan's governance crisis. Civil service, judiciary, police, local governments, regulators, and state enterprises all need restructuring. Without this, no reform will last.
And the key lesson?
Restructuring is not optional. Pakistan must build professional, transparent, and accountable institutions if it wants stability, growth, and democratic consolidation.
Chapter 16. Lesson from the experience of other countries. Why does Ishrat Husain bring in lessons from other countries in a book focused on Pakistan?
Because Pakistan is not the first country to face governance crises. Many nations started with weak institutions, poverty, and instability, but transformed themselves through reforms. Their experiences show that change is possible if the right choices are made.
Which countries does Husain draw lessons from?
He looks at countries across Asia, including South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, and Singapore. Each followed a different path, but all strengthened institutions, embraced reforms, and created long-term strategies.
So the goal is to see what Pakistan can adapt, not copy blindly.
Exactly. Every country has a unique context, but best practices can inspire reform.
Let's start with South Korea. What lesson does it offer?
South Korea was as poor as Pakistan in the 1950s. Through land reforms, investment in education, and export-led industrialization, it became an advanced economy. The key was consistent leadership and collaboration between state and business.
So partnership between government and private sector was central.
Yes, the state guided strategy, but private firms delivered growth. Corruption was controlled and meritocracy was emphasized.
How about Malaysia?
Malaysia faced ethnic divisions between Malays and Chinese. The government adopted inclusive policies to reduce inequality while promoting growth. Strong institutions, investment in infrastructure, and openness to trade made it a success story.
So diversity can be managed if governance is fair.
Precisely. Inclusive growth prevents social tensions from undermining progress.
What about Indonesia?
Indonesia under Suharto had authoritarian governance, but invested heavily in education, rural development, and infrastructure. After democratization, it maintained reforms and built stronger institutions. Today, it is a vibrant democracy and one of the fastest-growing economies.
So reforms survived beyond one regime.
Exactly. Continuity across governments is crucial.
China must also be an example, right?
Absolutely. China's rise was driven by gradual reforms. It opened markets, encouraged private enterprise, and invested massively in infrastructure and education. Government remained authoritarian, but strong institutions ensured stability and delivery.
Can Pakistan learn from China despite differences?
Yes, especially in long-term planning, infrastructure development, and emphasis on human capital.
And Singapore?
Singapore transformed from a small, resource-poor state into a global hub. Its governance model is built on meritocracy, zero tolerance for corruption, and efficient public services. Institutions are professional and insulated from political interference.
So discipline and accountability were the keys.
Exactly. Citizens trust the system because it delivers results fairly.
Do these examples show a common pattern?
Yes. Despite differences, successful countries share some traits. 1. Strong political will. 2. Merit-based institutions. 3. Long-term planning. 4. Investment in education and infrastructure. 5. Controlled corruption.
So the formula is not a mystery.
No, it's about consistent application. Pakistan often knows what to do, but lacks continuity and discipline.
How does corruption fit into these lessons?
Successful countries controlled corruption either through strict enforcement, like Singapore, or by creating systems where corruption was minimized by design, like South Korea's performance-based model. Pakistan must strengthen accountability institutions without political bias.
So the lesson is integrity matters.
Exactly. Without trust, governance collapses.
What about education?
Every successful country invested heavily in human capital. South Korea and Malaysia prioritized schools and technical training. China lifted millions from poverty through education. For Pakistan, fixing education is essential for long-term progress.
So without human capital, reforms won't last.
Precisely. Educated citizens demand accountability and drive innovation.
How important is continuity of reforms?
Very. Reforms take decades, not years. South Korea and China followed consistent strategies across governments. Pakistan, in contrast, keeps reversing policies with each new regime.
So stability is as important as reform.
Absolutely. Without continuity, progress resets every few years.
How about infrastructure?
Yes, Indonesia strengthened local governments after democratization, improving service delivery. Malaysia empowered states for development. For Pakistan, strong local governments can bring governance closer to citizens and improve accountability.
So centralization is part of Pakistan's problem?
Absolutely. Over-centralization breeds inefficiency and alienation.
If Pakistan follows these lessons, can transformation happen?
Yes, but only with consistent leadership, merit-based governance, and citizen participation. Pakistan has the resources and talent. What it lacks is discipline, planning, and continuity.
So hope is real, but challenges are big.
Exactly. Pakistan can learn from others, but must adapt lessons to its own context.
If you had to sum up this chapter, what would you say?
Successful countries show that governance reforms work when institutions are strong, corruption is controlled, and policies are consistent. Pakistan can replicate these principles if it builds political will and invest in people.
And the key lesson?
Pakistan doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. It needs to apply proven lessons from others, consistency, integrity, and inclusiveness to build a strong future.
Chapter 17. Conclusion. After going through so many chapters, what is Ishrat Husain's central conclusion about Pakistan's governance?
His central point is that Pakistan's governance crisis is not about the absence of institutions, but about their weakness. The state has a solid framework, courts, bureaucracy, parliament, regulators, but they are captured, politicized, or underperforming. Strengthening these institutions is the only path to sustainable democracy and development.
So Pakistan doesn't need to reinvent new systems.
Exactly. The foundations exist. What is missing is functionality, professionalism, and accountability. Pakistan's challenge is to make its institutions work as intended.
And what causes this dysfunction?
Several factors: elite capture, corruption, lack of meritocracy, weak enforcement of rules, and repeated political interruptions by military rule. Together, they create a culture where institutions serve powerful groups instead of the public.
Does Hussain see this as a hopeless situation?
Not at all. He argues Pakistan has enormous resilience. Its society is vibrant, its economy survives repeated shocks, and its people adapt quickly. But resilience alone is not enough. Without reform, crises will keep repeating.
So resilience is a survival tool, not a development model.
Precisely. Survival is not the same as progress.
What role does leadership play in these conclusions?
Leadership is crucial. Countries that transformed, like South Korea, Malaysia, and Singapore, had leaders who prioritized long-term reforms over short-term populism. Pakistan often suffers from leadership focused on short-term gains, patronage, and survival, not institution building.
So leadership quality makes or breaks governance.
Exactly. Without reformist leadership, institutions remain weak.
How does the military fit into Hussein's conclusions?
The military remains the strongest institution, but its dominance has distorted governance. Hussain argues that unless civilian institutions perform, the military will keep filling the vacuum. The conclusion is clear. Strengthening civilian institutions is the only way to restore balance.
So civilian strength is the best check on military power.
Precisely. Empty rhetoric won't work. Performance will.
What about the role of religion in governance, according to his conclusions?
Religion will always remain part of Pakistan's identity, but politicization of religion has undermined unity and encouraged extremism. Hussain stresses that governance should draw on Islam's universal principles, justice, equality, compassion, while resisting the capture of religion by extremist groups.
So religion can inspire reform, but must not dictate politics.
Exactly. Its values should guide morality, not paralyze policymaking.
How does Hussain view Pakistan's economy in this big picture?
He sees the economy as both resilient and fragile. Resilient because remittances, agriculture, and informal networks keep it afloat. Fragile because of low investment, poor exports, and repeated reliance on foreign aid. Without governance reforms like tax reform, energy management, and contract enforcement, the economy cannot sustain growth.
So governance reforms and economic reforms are inseparable.
Absolutely. One cannot succeed without the other.
Does Hussain see external actors as part of the solution or the problem?
Both. External actors have provided aid, investment, and security support, but overdependence has weakened self-reliance. Hussain concludes that Pakistan must use external support strategically, not as a substitute for domestic reforms.
So the key is self-reliance.
Precisely. Without it, external influence will always distort governance priorities.
What about local governance? Does it appear in his conclusions?
Yes, very strongly. Hussain emphasizes that local governments must be made permanent and constitutionally protected. Service delivery is best done at the grassroots. Without empowered local bodies, governance will remain distant and unresponsive.
So decentralization is part of the final message.
Exactly. A centralized state can't govern a diverse and populous country effectively.
What about the justice system?
Hussain concludes that justice reform is essential. Without timely and fair justice, citizens lose trust, investors lose confidence, and society turns to informal or extremist alternatives. The justice system must be modern, transparent, and accessible to the poor.
So justice is not just legal, it's political and economic too.
Precisely. It underpins everything.
Does he give a roadmap for reform?
Yes. His roadmap includes 1. Strengthening meritocracy in civil service and institutions. 2. Ensuring continuity of reforms across governments. 3. Reducing corruption through transparency and accountability. 4. Empowering local governments for service delivery. 5. Balancing civil-military relations by improving civilian performance. 6. Using external support strategically while focusing on self-reliance. 7. Investing in education and health to build human capital.
So it's a comprehensive agenda.
Exactly. Reform is not one-dimensional. It must be across all sectors.
What obstacles does Hussain acknowledge?
Vested interests, political short-termism, and lack of continuity. Elites benefit from weak institutions and resist reform. Frequent regime changes mean reforms rarely survive. Without a national consensus, progress is fragile.
So reform requires both political will and social support.
Precisely. Citizens, civil society, and media must pressure elites to sustain reforms.
Does Hussain end on a hopeful or pessimistic note?
Hopeful but cautious. He acknowledges Pakistan's deep challenges, but also its resilience, youth potential, and strategic location. If reforms are pursued consistently, Pakistan can break the cycle of crisis and survival.
So the conclusion is both a warning and an opportunity.
Exactly. Failure to reform means continued instability. Success could unlock Pakistan's true potential.
If you had to capture the essence of his conclusions in one sentence, what would it be?
Pakistan has institutions, but they must be restructured to serve the people, not elites. Only then can democracy, stability, and development flourish.
And the ultimate lesson?
Governance is not about slogans or shortcuts. It is about building strong, transparent, and accountable institutions that outlast individuals and regimes. That is the only path forward for Pakistan.